Good morning. We are up and running, and hopefully you can hear my voice. So let's get started. So first, whenever you see a green box, that means you're going to write in that box. So for today, last week you reviewed informational text about the tragedy of the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory fire. For the next three activities, you will study an excerpt from Uprising, a work of historical fiction that explores the events at the Triangle Factory and attempts to give a voice to the people who work there. Today will you complete a first reading of the text and answer stop and jot questions that will help you identify the point of view of the text and perspectives of the narrative's characters. So what we're going to be focused on most today is point of view, thinking about the perspective that this text gives you that maybe you didn't have last week when you were reading about the factory fire. So you're going to be kind of thinking more about the personal experiences that these people that are going to be talked about are going to have. So for today, you are going to review what you learned about the Triangle Factory fire last week. Then you're going to watch the video and study the chart to review what you know about point of view. Then you're going to click through the slides, reading the assigned chunk of the text and answering the questions found on each slide as needed. And then next, you're going to turn to what you know about point of view and identify the point of view of the narrative. And then finally, you're going to reflect on the main character, Yetta. All right, so if you need the translated instructions, as always, they are here. You click the link, it pops up, and you have it in whatever language you need of these options. So what do we remember? On March 25th, 1911, the Triangle Shirtwaist Company factory in New York City burned, killing 145 workers. It is remembered as one of the most infamous incidents in American industrial history, as the deaths were largely preventable. Most of the victims died as a result of neglected safety features and locked doors within the factory building. The tragedy brought widespread attention to the dangerous sweatshop conditions of factories and led to the development of a series of laws and regulations that better protected the safety of workers. So the first thing you're going to do is just kind of remind yourself of what you talked about last week. So in the box below, write anything else that you remember about the fire. So please don't fill in this box with I don't know or I don't remember anything else. You need to make sure that you are thinking back and really kind of reflecting on what you learned last week to help you with the things you're going to be doing this week. I'm not going to go over this in excess because we've done this a few times, but this is that language focus activity where you kind of put an X depending on how well you know each of these words. So these are the 5 words. Put an X on these. The ones where you put I know it well, you're going to write a definition. Next, your language focus part 2. Again, I'm not going to go over it in depth because you've already done it. You're just going to insert a box insert an image from Google that shows or represents the meaning of the word in the box. Okay? Look up the definition of the word before choosing a picture because not every picture that you find on Google is going to be representative of the actual definition. Oops, I missed something. Okay, so today you will read the section of Uprising, a work of historical fiction by Margaret Peterson Haddix that discusses the events of the Triangle Factory fire. You can find the text here. So click the link, it comes right up. There you go. So remember, this is an excerpt, so it's not the full text, so you won't be getting the full plot of what's happening, but it's a part of the story. So background information. What is historical fiction? The text you will be reading this week is a work of historical fiction. Historical fiction is set in the past and includes real places and events. The author researches the historical facts, but uses imagination as well as facts to create imaginary scenes and dialogue between characters. As you read, consider how the author uses her imagination to bring the events of the Triangle Factory fire to life. So the people that you will be reading about in this excerpt are not real. They are fictional characters, but they are largely created using the actual factual history of the Triangle Factory fire. Okay? All right, let me keep moving myself here. All right, so point of view review. Point of view is defined as the perspective or view from which the narrator tells the story. Watch the video and review the chart to familiarize yourself with the point of view. After you read today's text, you'll be asked to identify the point of view the author uses. So this slide clearly doesn't have anything that you need to write on it, but that does not mean that you go past it. That does not mean that you don't pay attention to it. You should absolutely click the video and listen to it, and you should absolutely familiarize yourself with this chart, okay? Because not everybody in the world is able to remember everything they learned, especially when you haven't been in school for over, 2 months now? We left in March, April. Yes, like almost 2 months, okay? So you want to make sure that you familiarize yourself with the chart and you watch the movie. So on slides 8 to 11, you'll be asked to read a chunk of the text and answer optional stop and jot questions. Optional stop and jot questions. These questions are not mandatory for you to get credit for your work, but they're going to be very, very helpful in you answering the questions that are actually mandatory in these activities. So for example, the first one says read lines 1 through 23, and then it says in these lines you meet Yetta. What do we learn about her? That is going to be so helpful for you to answer in chunks rather than trying to answer an entire comprehension question about the entire story. So think about how helpful these will be reading the text in chunks and answering questions as you go through rather than to just answer the big question at the end. Okay, so it goes lines 1 through 23, 24 through 57, 58 through 86. You are literally reading it in chunks, and it's helping you break the chunks apart for you to get a full understanding of the text. So while these are optional, I really, really, really strongly suggest that you take the time to get these done. There are 4 slides of these, so just take the time to get these done because they will be really helpful when you move on to the next slide. So the next slide, point of view. Let's return to the point of view discussed in slide 7. Review the chart and answer the questions on the right in order to examine the point of view of the text. So here's that same chart that you saw previously. And then here are 2 mandatory questions that you need to answer. So the slides 8 through 11 have optional questions, and then these questions are mandatory from 12 forward. So does the narrator use first person or third person pronouns? That is something that you should be aware of. So look at here, this tells you what the pronouns are. Can the narrator see the events through every character's eyes? So again, now we're thinking, is one character's point of view being shared, or is every character's point of view being shared? That's something that you need to think about. Next, refer to the chart on the left. Today's text is written in what point of view? So you're first answering these general questions about point of view, and then you are answering what point of view the text is actually written in. Next. So point of view is an important tool used by authors to craft a story. How does the point of view the author uses in Uprising contribute to your understanding of the story? Use evidence from the text to support your response. So some questions to consider over here. How did the point of view help you get to know the characters? And how did the point of view impact your understanding of the plot? Also think about the fact that it is a completely different thing to read about the factory fire from the perspective of somebody in today's society, because now we're just looking back and we are reacting to what happened. Think about what it would feel like to hear from the actual perspective of somebody who was there and did experience those moments. You're going to feel a lot more emotion, more personal emotion connected to the actual event. So you want to really think about that. What perspective, what impact do those different perspectives have? So for example, if you told a story about somebody else, but then you tell a story about yourself, how do you feel different about the way that that story is told? Next, let me get myself out of the way here. There we go. All right. Authors often develop characters by contrasting their behavior or point of view with other characters in the text. We've talked about these before. The text is told through Yetta's perspective, but the reader still learns about the other characters through their words and actions. Answer the question below to reflect on how Yetta contrasts with the other characters in the text. So then you're going to answer these 2 questions. Once again, mandatory. So this slide is mandatory, this slide is mandatory, and this slide is mandatory. There's like crows going around. Not bad luck today. Bad luck. First my computer doesn't work, and now I got crows outside my house. All right, the text concludes with Yetta making the decision to tell the 9th floor about the fire. How does this support what you learned about Yetta in the opening lines of the story? And how does this contrast with the behavior of her fellow workers? What does this contrast tell you about Yetta? So now you're thinking about Yetta as a character, you're thinking about the other characters involved in the story, and then you're using those other characters to build upon your understanding of Yetta as a person. And then finally, they always give you this helpful slide at the end. So they're going to do the same thing here. Point of view practice. So remember the 3 types. Identify the point of view for each short passage and write your answer in the green box. So now it's kind of like a little practice activity that you can do. All right, so that is it for today. I'm very sorry about the delay in getting this to you. My computer doesn't always cooperate. I'm sure you guys have felt the same with your computer as we've been doing this. So I appreciate you being patient. I appreciate us working together with this. So use the live questions document. Attendance is mandatory. Sign up for Google Meets tomorrow and Thursday. And also, quick announcement, if you haven't seen already, I assigned makeup work that can be completed at any time in your convenience, but it will not be accepted after June 3rd. So June 3rd is the last day I'm going to be looking at makeup work. All right. I will see you tomorrow.